started just to give enough time to Monica to give us a very interesting topic. So good morning, good evening, everybody. My name is Florin Teodorescu. I'm one of the founders of InProTED, and InProTED, it's an NGO we set up a couple years back. We figured that we can give some insights and help at the edge of the industry and academia. We had a few events in the past few years holding computer science summer camps for students, quite exciting events, both for the students, I hope, and for us. But today we are opening a new series, which is called Career Matters for Women, with a very interesting presentation from Monica, which is going to be followed on November 6th by another presentation by Adina Tufinescu, a principal program manager at Microsoft working in Azure. And another very interesting topic on November 20th by Alina Stanciu, herself a principal program manager with Microsoft on working on Azure Internet of Things and smart places and energy team. Really interesting subjects that I talked to her a while ago on that matters. So hold on those two events. I'm just quite excited to participate as well as today's event, which is Monica's. Now, a few words about Monica. She had quite a very amazing career. She graduated in Bucharest, a computer science school in Polytechnica University in Bucharest in 1997. Then very shortly after, in 1998, she moved to Seattle, working for Microsoft for a good number of years, from 98 to 2006. And in Microsoft, she actually started from being an engineer to becoming an engineering manager, switching then to a program manager. So quite some variety in that career. Alongside with that, because one career is not enough for Monica, she actually got a PhD in 2003 at Polytechnica University of Bucharest. Then she moved to Romania for a number of years when she was the support manager for the entire region, European region. In Romania she moved to Intel, another, you all know about Intel, another global corporation. And after a few years, she moved, still working for Intel, moved back to the US coast, now living in Portland, Oregon. And currently she's holding a position of software engineering director with Intel Cloud and Enterprise Group. So I'm pretty sure all this trajectory is gonna give us quite an amazing story. So thank you all for being here. Just a quick note, we are recording the session. And Monica, take it from here.
Yeah, thank you, Florin. You always make me look so much better in your presentation. Appreciate the introduction. Hello, everybody in Europe, in United States. Very happy to have you here. Some of you, good friends, we've met before. Some of you we didn't. My intent today was, as I advertised and kind of posted on Facebook as well, is to give you a bit of a flavor and share my learning. I'm very honored to be invited by InProTED to share my story, my scars, my, let's say, experiences. I hope to make it useful to women and men at any stage in their career. Obviously, my story comes more from the computer IT domain, from STEM. I think we have a broad variety. Some of the challenges, what can I say, look the same on both continents, and that kind of made it interesting for me to share this one story from two continents. Talking a bit about the agenda, I'll say a few words about why this topic is important in general. Then you already heard about me from Florin, but I'll give you let's say more color. And then I will be sharing some professional learning as well as personal learning. And we'll have Q&A, we'll pause at some point for Q&A, and we'll also take questions at the end. The more interactive this is, the more useful it is gonna be for you. So don't let me talk here all by myself. feel free to ask the questions that are relevant for you, and hopefully we can you can leave this presentation with a bit more than you had when you joined it. I also encourage those of you who are on the West Coast, get your coffee. I invited some of my friends to join me today for a coffee. I'm glad to see some on this call. So now let's talk about why career matters for women. One thing that did strike me in the right side of this slide, this is actually an exhibition of women portrayal in advertising imagery that I visited at the Portland Art Museum a while ago. And it was an imagery from 1959, where two men in alpine climbing gear stand exultant atop a rocky cliff. One man kind of mindlessly holds a rope that the woman at the bottom edge of the photograph is using to pull herself up the summit. And the men are kind of engaged in casual conversation, very indifferent to the struggle beneath them. That kind of made me stop for a moment and think, like, how much have things changed since 1959 till today? And they have definitely changed a lot. And we'll talk a bit about the numbers. But despite significant progress, while watching that photo, I still felt like this looks so much like some of my meetings. This looks so much like some of my days at the office. And what I mean through this is we definitely have low representation of women in technology. And that has some implications. That leads to women being more isolated, to not having so many leaders and managers who understand the differences and the struggle, because women have a different style in managing. And I think every woman is different. So we have a broad range of styles, but it's definitely, in my experience and kind of looking at working side by side with a broad variety of colleagues, we have a different styles. And we also have fewer mentors and fewer sponsors, and then fewer networks, which overall makes it to be what we call an uneven playing field and makes it tougher to climb. Now, why do we say that? I did some research, and I think every company I've been working with, and you heard Microsoft and Intel from Florine's introduction, have their own statistics. This is a statistic that I found available publicly, so I can share the numbers, but it's interesting how much the numbers correlate. So first, women, despite making up half of the US population, remain severely underrepresented in technology. It's like only 25% of technology workers. And also they flee the industry at much higher rates than men. Like quit rate is 41%, more than twice than men. Also, you can see women are more burned out. And hey, we have gone through a long period of work from home, COVID isolation, and things have changed quite a lot, I think, for everybody in the past 2 years. We see that women professionals are more burned out than 1 year ago. And the gap in burnout between men and women has almost doubled. More than this, 1 in 3 women considered leaving the workforce, downshifting careers. This is a significant increase from what it was before, which was 1 in 4 women only considering doing this in the first few months of the pandemic. So the pandemic didn't make things any easier. And the last slide with numbers that I'm gonna share with you is this leaky pipeline. It's a concept that I learned about it a few years ago, and I was wondering, like, what's that pipeline? This graph represents how many employees are entry level, managers, then moving up to senior manager or director, to VP, to senior VP, and to C-suite, CEO, COO, and so on. So for professional women in general, we see a trend, and as the prevalence of women decreases as we move up the pipeline. You can see, like, women in general, it's like 24% when you get to the C-suite, which is actually a general industry. Well, as we move to the right side of this slide, the representation of women in engineering and product roles trails, is way behind the rest of the pipeline. For example, we have only 34% of entry-level roles of women versus 48%, as well as 26% of first-level manager positions versus 41%, which is in the graph at the left. So this disparity for women in the path to leadership is so, how to say, broadly acknowledged that it even has a name. It's called the broken rung. And women continue to face this broken rung at the first step up to manager, when for every 100 men promoted to manager, only 86 women are promoted. And as a result, men significantly outnumber women at the manager level. And that means there are far fewer women to promote to higher levels. So the problem only compounds as we move to higher levels. And one thing I'm also seeing myself as I got more senior is many times I'm alone in meetings. And it's not because I'm so unique, it's just because this pipeline is leaky. And that's why we're doing this My Career Method for Women. So coming back to the generous topic that InProTED shared and invited some of us to join, is because it's well acknowledged that mentorship, peer networks, and social connections make a difference. And we have to help and learn from each other. I personally learned a lot from the stories of other women, senior women that I admired, I used as role models. And we have to pay it forward. Regardless, I think, of the level of seniority, there is a new generation coming from behind, and helping them and sharing with them, it's very important. I'm also a big advocate of the fact that women are setting a new standard for leadership, and hopefully I will touch on why is that. Women, usually teams that have a diverse leader are more diverse. That's been my experience everywhere I worked. When I had a women manager, there were way more women in that team. I'm very proud to say that today half of my organization is women, which is something I'm proud of, and I'm trying to support as much as possible. But also teams that are more diverse are more creative. Teams that are more diverse are collaborating more. So we'll talk a bit about this. Just wanted to give you, let's say, the motivation for this series, and also some of the numbers that I've constantly have seen in the industry, and I hope the progress will accelerate. That being said, let me tell you a few words about myself. And I'll just add some color to what Florin has already mentioned. I graduated in Bucharest, in Romania. I'm a computer science software engineer by trade. I moved in 1998 with my family to Redmond to work for Microsoft, and there I've grown from software engineer to senior manager. Then we moved back to EMEA, where I worked with Microsoft support as a regional senior manager. And in the same region, I joined Intel. And I joined Intel as a general manager for the Intel site in Romania in 2011. Then in 2014, December, I took on a new role in Oregon, as this was an opportunity to take a stand in running a global business. So I had this opportunity to move across 2 geographies, and these 3 moves across the Atlantic enabled me to see the world through multiple lenses. Now, obviously, these moves have a personal side as well. And I wanted to add this as every time you have to build a career, you need a great team at work, but it's so important to also have a great team at home. When we initially relocated in '98, it was just me and my husband. And I had in my husband a great supporter all along my career in all the steps I took. When we moved back in 2006, we actually moved back with two toddlers. The picture actually shows them older, but they were 5 months old and 3 years old. And we did that move also to get them closer to our extended family. And I'll talk a bit about what role that played. Now, when we moved back in a way, we moved to Oregon in 2015. We moved all the four of us to teenagers, and that was another, let's say, interesting experience. I think all of these were family projects, and we had to all together go through them. This time, our two boys had to leave behind friends, had to leave behind their social networks there, and adapt to a new culture. So that was an interesting, let's say, adventure, and continues to be interesting. I wanted to also have a bit of a pause and share of like what people think a successful career looks like. It's never the left side, what people think it looks like. It's more of a right side where the line goes multiple directions, and let's say the trend is up, but it kind of goes through so many turns. And this line shouldn't be random. That's my take. You decide how your drawing will be looking like, and there are usually very good reasons for ups and downs. And I'll now get into some of my learning. So my first learning is about owning your story. And I wanna tell you a story from 2005. When we moved from Redmond to Bucharest, Romania, to be closer to our family. Back then, I decided to stay with Microsoft also in Romania. And I was already for 8 years with the company, loved the culture, loved the people. And those 8 years experience made me think that I can bring value to the subsidiary of the Microsoft in that geo. The downside was that when moving from product development groups to what was present in that geo, I had to step down 4 grade levels. And I took a role as a senior consultant. This bothered me on the side because it was the same grade level I joined Microsoft 8 years ago. So I was like, hey, is this a career reset? But then who outside the company would care about a grade level when there are so many important things at stake? And moving to a different geo on the pay scale was different anyway. So we were starting, let's say, a new path regardless. On the bright side is that since I believed in my experience as a manager and as a Microsoftie, the opportunity knocked at the door, and Microsoft decided to open a global technical support site right in the city I was in Bucharest. And they were looking for a manager with international experience. And here I was. I joined as the first manager of that center. And this is how my experience with a startup in a multinational has started. I put some pictures here. When I joined in 2006, I joined with the first team of 15 engineers. I was the first manager in the site. In 2011, the site was more than 250 people. And I had the chance to hire engineers, managers, grow the local management team, work together with the local leadership on the mission, the vision for the site, drive readiness activities, university engagements. As Florin mentioned, I have a PhD from that university. It was amazing to go back and engage with universities in that region and build collaborations. So this was kind of my my learning on, hey, 4 steps down can actually be a leap forward. That was my, let's say, entrance into a new stage of my career as a senior manager. Was not as technical, but was growing teams, growing organizations. So my take is like it's a marathon. It's not a race. Sometimes you take different steps and you do what's right for your family, for yourself. My main, let's say, drive here was to invest in people, invest in the people at home, invest in the people at work. This enabled me to create amazing teams every time I'm going back there, and we have great relationships and keep in touch. And I'm so proud of the successes of many of them. And align your professional life with your personal value. I care about people, and I also care about how, let's say, what I leave behind. Leaving behind the legacy is a big thing. So this is one example where, hey, what's a career? It's various decisions you make along the way. Now, from working so many years for US-based companies from a remote geography, because I spent quite a few years, about 10, 5.5 with Microsoft in this wonderful site that we started. And then I joined Intel for 3.5 years to do a second startup in a multinational and grow again the team, this time from 65 engineers to, again, more than 200. So I learned quite some things from working remotely. I've always had a lot of remote management and remote stakeholders. And that's where it comes my second learning, which I wanted to share as somehow we are all remotely today. And I thought this may be useful to some of you. Perception is reality. And I learned that the hard way when I was working in the geo. My management was in US and in Germany. But initially I found it was not fair. So statement is, when working remotely, when people don't see you every day, you are being judged by perceptions, the perceptions you create. And these perceptions can make or break you. And not only you, but it can impact the teams you are managing. And usually you want to do all you can for your teams. And you work very hard to make sure that they have all their needs addressed, to remove all the obstacles. However, never forget the aspect that there are few management layers above you that influence the, let's say, the business, the fate of those teams, and it matters very much how others see you from the distance. And what I'm showing here on the slide is many times you can be the one in a video conference, and well, usually I had lots of people sitting around the same table in a room somewhere across the geography. Today, I think we are all in the video conference, but the same concept holds. And those people see us only when we dial into the conference calls. So it's like opening a window to the world. And what I think my question to each of you is, what do you let others to see through that window? Are you being seen in the best light that you want to project? Or are you really showing your true values? Or are you just like, oh, let me get through that conference call, let me get rid of it, let's move on to the next one? My let's say, learning was burying ourselves under too much work may make us less effective in actually managing that window of perception. And what I took away, and I encourage you to do, I'm sure many of you already do, but just wanted to emphasize, is to proactively manage perceptions, because perceptions are a reality. Having worked in a remote site of a multinational company gives a special understanding of the problems that the teams there are facing, like being outside of decision loops, or managers learning about organizational changes at the same time with their employees, or not having a voice in influencing business decisions. That can be very, very frustrating. Or even being invited to meetings in the middle of the night or 5 a.m. And you want to be there because you know it's important for your teams. So this builds what I call global mindset. It's somehow a flavor of empathy, but this proved to be very useful for kind of building up my leadership skills. And I've seen many other successful leaders exercising this. And on the slide, you'll find what global mindset is for the dictionary definition, but also the effects that it enables someone to better understand what's going on in global situations, interpret verbal, non-verbal messages, signals from people of different cultures, and in general, demonstrating the higher levels of flexibility. So this could be a huge asset when working in a multinational company. And I want to tie it to the fact that for me, it's actually been somehow a challenge. When moving back to the geo, it was not, let's say, a step up. And it was a challenge also to work remotely for 10 years, because that limited some of the career opportunities. However, that challenge helps me a lot now, and actually has helped me a lot in managing teams all along the way. So my learning here is actually that your greatest challenge may become a strength. So there may be things that you go through today that you think like, oh, this is so hard. It's okay. If you manage to go through them successfully and you learn from them, my advice would be to share and help others understand as well, because you probably have gone to much greater pain on that area, and you surely have something to share. So help others understand and help others grow from your experience. Another learning is around networking, and that ties into personal and professional. It is well known, I quoted here, that men are more natural and better networkers than women. And the advice, or also the advice I had for myself is like, hey, your professional network, and I would add here that your personal network is so valuable. Nurture it. And that doesn't mean that I'm meeting someone at a conference, or I'm traveling and I'm meeting someone and then we forget about each other. Networks have to be kept fresh and refreshed, and you have to touch on people. And my recommendation is reach out and help those people before you need their help, because that is actually one of the, let's say, the lessons. If you have someone coming to you, and probably you can resonate, asking only for help, you are probably less willing to help them than if they usually come and, hey, say hello once in a while. So the idea is that the IT world, our world, is so small. Even when I worked on 2 continents, there are people that I know from the time I worked with Microsoft in Redmond, and we are helping each other quite a lot. Same with Intel and Microsoft in EMEA. So at some point, the network is getting very big, which may be challenging, because like, hey, how am I going to talk to so many so frequently? And at some point, you have to become methodical about it. I personally keep an Excel, and I update that Excel. And I actually pasted the column top. So I have connections, I have their roles, which businesses they are, when we last talked, whether I want to take an action with that person, help them with something. And I also like waiting, like, hey, how much of a weight, especially in the career side, how much of a weight that person has in supporting my career dreams. There are also categories, like there are career champions. You have all kind of people in your network, like who's singing your praises, who are your supporters, your advocates, when you are not there in the room. Or who are those who give you honest feedback on the performance and challenge you to develop? They kind of pull your hand like, what are you doing? Why don't you go for that next opportunity? Or who is your emotional support system? When you are down, where do you go to get a positive boost? Or who can cheer you up? And then there are I think we're calling them sometimes foxes, the organizational sages, who helps you understand the ins and outs of the organization. And if you are like me, in companies that continuously adapt and change to keep pace with the market, you will continuously have to learn your organization. So who is going to be that person or those people who can help you understand how things are done in that new organization? There are mentors who help you think through professional and personal decisions. There are connectors, people who just help you connect to someone, like, oh, I'm working on this project, and they know somebody who's worked on that project or who has experience and can help you. And then there are the power people. Who has the power to make things happen? How many power people do you have in your network? That's important as well. So getting organized, that's why I said networking is work, and you probably have read this. It is work, especially during the COVID times when we're all remotely. You need to be even more deliberate with maintaining this network, as we don't run into each other on the hallway. We don't meet in various social events. We need to be more proactive and plan ourselves. Any questions so far? I have some more slides to come, but I wanted to pause for a moment.
I have a question. This is Prabha.
Hi, Prabha.
Hi, Monica. Good to see you here. So when you worked with Microsoft and you became manager from a software developer, what made you do that? Like, what was the drive, and how long did it take for you to make that transition?
Yeah, thank you for the question. Those are wonderful times. And Prabha is actually another great woman in my life who's helped me go through that transition. Is my first manager at Microsoft, who continuously somehow guided me, understood some of these challenges we're talking about, and supported my career development. So first, a great manager helped me. Second, the ability to work with people and interact with people, and kind of, I knew I could put myself behind and help them to succeed. And I think being comfortable with, let's say, stepping back and taking a different role, because as a manager, you have a different role. You don't compete with your people. You are not as good as them. You're not supposed to be. They are supposed to be the best ones at what they do. And you take a role of removing obstacles and supporting, guiding, and growing that team. And you start to operate in a different mode. When you are not let's say, in your area of expertise technically, you start to build people that take different roles, or grow people that take on different roles that complement your skills. And you also start to build a different type of network. Does this answer, Prabha, what you're looking for?
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks for the question. Any other question? I'm glad to see so many. Hey, thank you for joining. Love to see you here. Hey, Ingrid, it's a bit hard to speak a bit loud.
So people with different backgrounds and have those who have different views on a project, for example, how do you unite their views and keep everyone happy, basically? So I think it's a situation that can happen quite a lot. So I was wondering about that.
Well, this is a wonderful question. Thank you, Ingrid. It's actually it's very close to this topic. Like, hey, we keep saying diverse teams are more creative, more successful, but hey, they many times clash, right? They have different opinions, and they may have different backgrounds as well. So I think in US, you always have people of multiple cultures in your team. When I was in Europe, I somehow trained in a different space. I managed engineers that were based in Germany and in Bucharest, so Romanian, German, and in France. So I had to interact with three very strong cultures that were each of them in their own country. That taught me a lot. First, I had to learn what management meant in their country. There are different legislations for work legislation are so different in this country. So that's one thing. Then their way of driving things. And I don't want to, how to say, stereotype it to a country, but people were coming from very different backgrounds. Like engineers in Germany were very senior. Engineers in Romania were junior. They were ramping up. Different levels of experience, all of them very ambitious. Now, my approach in all of these situations is try to avoid going head to head. I'm not sure if you can see my hands. When you have people clashing, that means there is no clarity in the common goal. Usually when we have a team, we have some common goals. So if they come from different angles and they start fighting with each other, always point back to the common goal. So as long as we drive together towards a common goal, it's okay to have multiple points of view. because at the end, it will be easier for some folks. Somebody has to let go and adopt the, let's say, the decision that gets us faster to the common goal. So trying to align and go together towards like, hey, what are we actually trying to accomplish here? I see you guys have different opinions. Let's see how these opinions help us to get where we want to get. And that takes the pressure off because it doesn't make it personal. Like it's not my point of view versus your point of view. It makes it a common charter. And that helps a lot. Another way is by leading by example. You as a manager have to be comfortable with this. And many times I've seen managers who are the smartest in the room. And I remember there is actually a saying that in the shadow of great trees, the grass cannot grow. And it's so true because the manager's role is not to be the great tree. Manager's role is to step back and encourage this different point of view that may be different than his or hers. And be comfortable with that. One thing I can say is like many times I have an opinion. I have people in my team who are very senior in those domains, and I encourage them to challenge me. And many times they have way better, let's say, approaches to the same problem than I initially had. So, hey, why would I take that personally? So I think being comfortable, like stepping back, encouraging people to challenge the manager, that's another way to drive inside of the team that spirit, because they know it's okay. It's okay to first have an opinion. It's okay to share it. And also, it's okay to not go with your opinion, and you have to learn to let it go. So learn people to let it go by, let's say, showcasing that yourself. Is that, Ingrid, what you're looking for?
Yes, thank you very much. Yes.
Thanks, great question. It's actually happening. And especially in companies like Microsoft, Intel, there are lots of what we call type A personalities, which very competitive people, very self-driven. And yes, this is a challenge that comes quite a lot.
Yes, I've also heard about the type A, type B personality thing. I think I'm more of a type B person. I like embracing other ideas and things like that. And I've noticed that there are a ton of people who I've met who are more type A and are more focused on their own ideas. And I was wondering how it could work out with these different personalities and different ideas in the workplace. And yes, the answer, I really liked your answer. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. And keep in mind, it's a marathon, it's not a race. Let me create some diversity here. So I want to also share some personal learning. I said I would talk about what it takes to be the mother of two and the only daughter. So I'll share what it takes to be the mother of two. And my personal learning is it takes, what they say, a village indeed to raise a child. And multiply that by two. I'm sure, I don't know how many on the call have kids. I'm sure some of you do, and you can resonate. If you want to continue a professional career going and growing, you really have to create a huge support network. And I have some pictures here from my boys in 2005 when we moved to Europe, and 2021, obviously very proud of our teenagers. Our older son is a freshman now in university, and our younger son is a sophomore at high school. Time flies, but what's in between? It's a lot of people that helped us. First, family. I think one of the most important decisions that a woman makes is when they choose their life partner. And I think for me, that played a huge role. So family, my husband, but also extended family. We had, so that's the arrows here, that family included extended family. We had a lot of support from grandparents when we moved back to Europe. And that's why we moved, because we wanted our boys to get to know their roots. We wanted them to interact with the grandparents, and they helped us a lot. We also were helped by people outside of our family, like teachers, tutors. We established connections with like the kindergarten teacher. I actually have her in the picture here at the bottom where it's more of us. She's next to my father in white. The kindergarten picture she's still one of our best family friends. All these people, I think they are even more supportive of you when you recognize their competence and you also appreciate them in the long run. Like now we changed, we moved to a different high school, like we moved from middle school to high school. We don't remember the teachers we had before. No. And then friends and colleagues. One friend example here is just to share a story. When I moved back from US to Romania, working for Microsoft, my son, I wanted to breastfeed my both sons through, let's say, I managed to do it to 11 months. And in Romania, I was still breastfeeding our younger son. There was not this notion of mother's room. So talking to the women there, they were like, we have maternity leave that is 1 year or 2 years. Why would we need the mother's room? One of them, who was the marketing director, then understood. She worked with US. She kind of understood what I needed, and she gave me the key from the marketing storage room, which I could use as a mother's room. And that was a huge help for me for that period. And she also stayed close to me. We keep in touch, actually, even today. So, I mean, that type of friends and colleagues that help you somewhere along the way, my approach is don't forget them. Keep them in mind. Send them a greeting card at Christmas or when you have time. Many times, I think we struggle with time. I'll talk a bit about that. But that's important. That's also, I think it built me as a more empathetic person because I could keep in touch, understand these people. And I think it's also important for the kids. They know it's not just an ephemeral person who comes and goes in our lives. We hired help. Don't try to do it all alone. We definitely had help any times we needed, like clean the house and do all kind of work that we couldn't do because I was traveling a lot and my husband worked as well. So we needed quite a lot of help. And then to keep you growing, surround yourself by role models and mentors. I also got to meet some great people in the geography as well as in US that have inspired me. And I learned from them. I continued to learn from them. So if you want to grow towards a certain role, surround yourself with people who are in that role and make sure that you give them also recognition. So that's my village story. I will move on to the next personal learning, being the only daughter. I don't have brothers or sisters, and we moved across the ocean quite a lot. When parents are young, for us, and our parents-in-law as well, they were a huge help. These are my mother and father in the picture. But it becomes less easy when they need our help. We were actually in Romania. I was working for Microsoft when my father had an AVC. And he was tied to bed for a year. We couldn't be there for the day-to-day, let's say, help. We helped as much as we could. But engaging, again, a strong support network. And I think I kind of leveraged everybody in the family that could help. Because we are present in any way feasible. I think it's very important right now for my mom. If I call her even 2 minutes per day, or I text her in IM on Facebook, especially when it's only one of them, being present with them in some shape or form, it's important. But you will not be able to do it all. So I think what I'm saying is, hey, there is no free lunch. We get a lot of help at some point. The dearest people that we have need our help as well, and it can be hard. So I encourage you to kind of do it any way you can. Be present for them. I think they know, hey, she's in meetings, but she called me before. So try to kind of not forget that, because I think it's part of who we are. And then another part, I'm switching gears to more like a skill, which is called prioritizing and reprioritizing, and that applies to work as well as to personal. One picture here, I think Florin will resonate on the jars, on the glass jars. It's on how we fit things in our day. Time is the only finite resource we have. And many times we have to ask ourselves, what is truly important for me? What are my priorities? Everything calls for time, from relationships. I talked to a successful project, to witnessing your child's first step. But we have to keep things in balance. And I think we've all been there when we wished for more than 24 hours in a day. So that's why making sure that we align these priorities to our long and short-term plan, it's critical, because you have to make some trade-offs. And that's why I'm saying it is okay to say no. I'm working now with some mentees who say like, hey, the more I take on, I love to help people, but I don't have time for it. So saying no sometimes actually help people to like you more. Instead of just saying, yes, 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 I'll do it, and then you don't do it because you just don't have time. So pick your big stones here, fit them in the jar, then add the small tasks you sign up for, but also say no, because that sets expectation to people. And there are ways to say no politely in a way that people understand that you care about their ask, but it's just not feasible for you to help at that point. You can say no and point them to somebody else to help, or engage with somebody else and ask that person, can you help them instead of me, because I'm just out of time. But it's very important to say no. Time is the same, but it matters how much energy you put into those moments. So focus is super important when you try to get something done. And my mantra here is manage your energy versus your time. And that means being in balance with your personal life as well as professional. Because, hey, if things don't go well at home, I can have as much time for my work that I can, but it's just not gonna do it, at least for me. That's very personal. I need them to be aligned. And when I'm aligning these priorities, when I'm making decisions which task I pick or which event I pick, I'm using this looking back 1 year from now criteria. I'm like, is 1 year down the road gonna matter that I missed my son's performance on the piano or graduation, or it's going to matter that I attended this meeting, which is on a weekly cadence, and yes, I know I have to present today. So putting things in a perspective help me making, let's say, at least decisions that I'm more comfortable with in the long term. Then using your calendar to help you, not having your calendar driving you. Many times we tend to underestimate how long it takes to complete a certain task. And I'm also doing that, but making sure I block time on the calendar for that task helps me to somehow materialize it in my mind. And the last thing I wanted to share here, last two things. One is get your workouts on the calendar, otherwise you'll never make them. It happened to me that I skipped for 1 year all the workouts, even if they were on the calendar, but in the second year, I started to make them, and that's important for us to be healthy. And at the same time, make sure in managing your career that you analyze your calendar. I tried, and I asked my admin to keep an eye on that 30% of my time is spent on meetings that are helping my team. So that's the down thing here. 30% of the meetings are with peers of mine or folks across organizations. So across means building alliances, partnerships, coordinating, enabling my team to run, but not only, also building, let's say, making sure I connect with my peers, managing across, and then 30% managing up. It's never a perfect balance, but try to make sure that you don't, like one mistake I did at some point years back, 15 years back, I spent all my time managing my team. Like 100% was managing down. And that kind of led me to miss these other angles, and I didn't get all the support I needed from above and across. So find a recipe that works for you, and use your calendar to make it work for you. But aligning the professional lives and personal values is what mattered for me. Making calendar work for you. I try to kind of keep mine under control, and I have help. My admin is kind of pulling my sleeve sometimes and saying, hey, you don't have any work time allocated. When are you doing all of this? And then engaging in mentorship, peer networks, and social connections, because they make a difference. They allow you to find those people that will support your next career step. And last but not least, do what we're doing here, helping and learning from each other. And don't forget to pay it forward. Give your learning to others that are to come. Support the women that are to come. I'm always trying to read twice a woman resume when it comes on my desk. I always try to encourage women, like, hey, go do that. Why don't you take that assignment? So, because I also got the same level of support, and I think that's a huge gift. I will stop here. I know we are out of time, but happy to take more questions and help you. You have your coffee. So any questions?
I had one.
Let's go ahead.
I was wondering how you differentiate yourself among your male colleagues.
Well, that's Sena. Thank you for the question. You know, at some point at Microsoft, it was a funny situation. I said, like, well, it's good to be a woman. Everybody knows my name because I was the only one on the team. Differentiation, though, as you get more in depth on it, is it's not easy. I would use the fact that I'm a woman and the fact that I had to take this turns in my career, which give me a very broad leadership experience as a differentiator. And when I'm in organizations that don't care about that, I'm trying to either raise the visibility on those skills that I have, so knowing very well your strengths. I think that's the starting point. The strengths, the experiences. Wait, what's your secret power? Know that, and then make sure you are in an organization that values that, or in you pick a class that values that, and market that, because if you don't say what you know to do, that people will not know. So make sure you kind of advertise that with your manager and ask them, like, hey, I know how to do this. I've managed support. I know at Intel we are having some needs on support. How can I help in that space? So that helps differentiate, and I think it also matters on who is your audience for differentiation. So let me ask kind of back, now, when you think about differentiating yourself, what do you have in mind? Who do you want to see you different from the rest of the men? Is it a teacher, a manager, a friend? What's in your mind?
Yeah, I think teachers and mentors.
Teachers and mentors.
Mm-hmm.
With mentors, it's easier, because mentors, you go and ask them to help you grow a certain skill. You say, like, I admire you, the way you kind of do this. Can you mentor me and help? And they usually appreciate that. And then another thing is, make sure you give them recognition. I sense that there is a lot of, we forget sometimes to do that. So with mentors, they know you more personally, at the more personal level. With teachers, it's probably more difficult, because you are one of the many. If you are like me, I didn't like asking questions during my university classes. I was not the one to wave my hand there. So I think doing my best, but also try to find those projects that give you a bit more airtime with that teacher, because it's hard to differentiate yourself. I agree with you. In a big pool of students, I thought I was a teacher myself at university, and frankly, I was always seeing the ones who were asking questions, being there is a saying that the squeaky wheel gets the grease, the ones that were kind of more visible. But then you can always go after the class and ask specific questions, introduce yourself. Never be afraid to go introduce yourself, and then maybe raise your hand, like, hey, how can I do more in this subject? How can I want to learn more. Can you give me some advice? So asking for this kind of helps you stand out. Not everybody's doing it.
Thank you.
Thanks for the question. So I'm kind of looking at Florine here on the InProTED. I know we are out of time. Do we have any more questions?
So if you have any questions, please speak up. Otherwise, I do have one last question, or anybody can follow me as well. obviously, as a person, you like doing something very much. The organization you are part of has a mission, it is doing something. How do you keep those two in alignment? What's your tolerance between, I keep growing my career in this organization, or maybe my interest with what the organization is doing is kind of diverging, so I'm looking at a career change. What's the tolerance there?
I think it's your decision. You have to, and usually when I'm changing my job, and I did several times, I create a spreadsheet. I'm the spreadsheet person. Like, what are the things I like? What are the pluses that keep me here? Or when I'm looking fully into a new role and I have several options, what are the pluses that I see and what are the minuses? And that helps me somehow make the call. For example, fortunately, I love growing teams and investing in people. That's a very transferable kind of organization-wide skill or how to say interest. That keeps me where I am. Now there is another thing. I have a PhD in security, and my team is working on performance. So I'm not doing anything that I learned. And can I live without it? Because what I'm doing is actually compensating. What I'm doing that I like is compensating for not doing that special area. It's a very personal decision. But my advice would be, don't be afraid of change, because as I said, change may look sometimes as a step back, but if it's aligned with what you think it's a strength for you and what you're passionate on doing, in the long run, it may prove to be a leap forward. That's why personal values with professional life have to be very aligned. And if I find enough energy and fulfillment into the things that keep me in the current role, then I'm staying. If there is not enough, then looking for a new role, and that's fine. I mean, we have so many opportunities today. I think the good part with this area today, and I think we are lucky, all of us who have been actually working in technology and STEM, is because this area has grown so much, and there is such a huge demand today. So there are so many options, actually.
Thank you.
Thank you, Florian, for the question. Great question.
Anybody else having any question?
I have two questions. The first one was relating to managing your calendar and saying no, right? It's not, I wanted your input on how do you say no? Like sometimes people don't take no for an answer, right? So how do you manage that?
Which people don't take no for an answer. Let me just go back to my calendar slide here. Okay, which, I mean, is that person who says, who doesn't take no for an answer in a position of power?
It depends. It's like sometimes it's hard to say no. I don't know if it's like how do you say no? That's a skill, right?
It is a skill. And I think I learned to say no more after I had the boys, I have to say that, because when we didn't have kids, both my husband and myself were kind of calling each other at 9 p.m. from the Microsoft buildings and like, hey, when are we going home? After I had the kids, there was something very precious, a time that I wasn't spending with them. So the decisions on what I was spending my time were more thoughtful. And I don't think it's kids related or not. It's just like how much time you put into prioritizing and deciding this is something I'm not gonna do. And saying no then, I actually, I appreciate people who tell me no because I know what to expect. And I don't respect people who tell me yes and don't deliver. And I have seen both behaviors. So I think saying no, it's a way to set expectations. And once you kind of go past that uncomfortable barrier, it's actually, to say, helping you look even better. It helps build your brand as someone who is, when they say something, they will do it. And saying no, it has to be done also nicely because yes, obviously, it's, as I said, it's a small world. We run into people, even if we, not today, tomorrow we'll meet again. So I always try to say no in a way that makes them feel heard. So like, I understand you need this help. And I really appreciate you came to me for this. I cannot do it right now. Let me find somebody else who can help, or maybe you go look to that page, or maybe, hey, I just cannot get to it. And I really appreciate you understanding me with that. So I think it's more on our side. Just become comfortable. It's okay. Nobody says yes all the time. And those that do actually don't look good. if that's the courage I can give you, Prabha. I know you are brave, but I'm just saying. So doing in a way that doesn't jeopardize the personal relationship, do it in a way that doesn't make them to take personal.
With the pandemic, it's gotten even harder to say no, just because you're online all the time, and
Right.
everyone's on IM, and the communication like that's going on 24/7, right? So it's it becomes like a normal, like a normal thing to do is chat with anyone whenever you want to, put a calendar on, like, call in whenever you want to. It's become so informal now with the pandemic that this has
It's
become even harder.
actually, you're right, and that was actually even before. So usually people look ruder in writing than when you talk to them. And that's again my manager, my first manager from Microsoft, the great woman I was talking about. She taught me, if an email goes back and forth more than 3 times, pick up the phone. Because somebody who looks very rude in email, when you talk to them, you realize they are not as rude. They actually just, somehow people look ruder when they write things down. And that's what we face with the pandemic. Like everybody's IMing and asking us for things. And when we feel when we need to push back, or it's kind of a relationship job, you know that person is going to take it personally. If you say no, you call them. Just say, hey, do you have 2 minutes? Let me talk to you. And then I think they feel heard and respected, which is very important for us human beings. And you will face a less angry person that you don't do that thing for them. So even in the pandemic, you have to be more deliberate. You kind of have to be a bit more effort, because you just don't run into them on the hallway and you cannot tell them like what we just talked about. Pick up the phone.
Okay, thank you. I have one more question. So when you showed that graph of your major transition points in your career, right? I'm sure like when you were making that decision to make a big leap, you didn't realize that would be like a big milestone, but years later when you look back, you're like, okay, that was an inflection point. So all the inflection points that you have gone through, has it always been like a decision that you were making for more than a year, or how much time would you spend? Because making that decision is the biggest game changer, right? And sometimes people just don't make decisions. They just keep going without making a decision. So how do you be so courageous to make a decision and stick with it?
That's indeed a very good question. I also struggle sometimes, but I engage help. So I think one of the things that I advise everyone to do, don't hesitate to ask for help. And I engage help from the folks that I consider to be like my board of directors, people who can, like when I moved from Microsoft to Intel, I reached out to one of my mentors who used to be a GM for Microsoft, and asked for his advice. Like, should I do this? What's it gonna be? So, and he was a huge asset for me in that transition. When we moved across the ocean, hey, it was not only my profession, was an entire family decision. And that's when another board of directors member, my husband, was very important to get on board. And actually, he helped me to make that decision much more than if I would have made it by myself. Because we could balance the pros and cons. And it's very important when you go through a transition with a team or with your family to have that team or your family on board. Otherwise, it's not going to work. Things go out of balance. So yes, I face the same challenge in making some of the big decisions, and I'm giving good advice. I'm not perfect myself either, but I don't make it alone. Ask your board of directors. Yeah, and every woman I think should have a few people on that board of directors, family as well as professional.
And these decisions, like all these big decisions that you've taken, they have not like happened overnight. They've always like taken a year or two.
Right,
right. Already been thinking in that direction.
Yes, absolutely. It took us quite a while to plan the move. At some point, we actually were going to move from US to Europe, and I learned I'm pregnant. That's why we moved with a very young baby there, because we decided like, let's stay a bit longer. It's just not worth to transition when I'm pregnant. So you have to time it as well so that it works for you. But it takes, don't rush them. These big decisions can can take time, and that's okay. Make sure things are clarified on both sides. Don't jump totally into the blind. But yeah, there is some courage. Sometimes you also go with probably 80% of the questions answered, not all the 100%.
And has there ever been a point where you wanted to prioritize your career, but you just couldn't, and you had to put a backseat for a couple of years because family was more important, or marriage is more important, or something like that, where two conflicting high priority values? How did you manage that?
Yeah, there is always a challenge. It's, what can I say? It's not perfect. It's not, I think everybody as part of their journey has to make trade-offs. There is no free lunch. Yes, and I think it depends very much what's most important for you. For me, always family was the anchor. So always I prioritize family. And somehow it worked out that actually that supported also me growing in the career. But I also know women who are not happy when they are kind of stagnating professionally. And well, I guess who is, but some of them really have a problem with that. And then, yeah, they make decisions that somehow helps both of them. I think you can actually arrange. There are so many possibilities that if you think creatively, look at the blockers. What are the blockers for the family? Are the blockers that I need to move to a totally new location? And then maybe let's find something closer to home that helps me grow. So thinking creatively, taking your time, discuss it with your family, and then kind of evaluating the options. And don't hesitate to put things in a spreadsheet, plus, minus, weight. I am a big fan of that. You can share that in your discussion, you know, so that's making it easier. Thank you. Great question, Prabha.
Thank you, everybody. Any other questions? We are a few minutes over time, but we started a little late, so that's okay too.
I have a question.
Please.
Monica, based on your experience, which is the best approach to collect feedback? By open discussion with the team or using surveys? What is the difference?
The difference is that it depends on what people you have on the team. I mean, my experience is some people are very direct, and when you ask them, if you give them heads up, like, hey, in the next one-on-one, I want to hear back from you what's help, and kind of ask them from the point of view, like, I want to be a bigger help for your work and career. Tell me what's helping from what I'm doing, and tell me what's not helping. What should I start doing? And kind of showing that openness, and not making it personal. I think taking it personal is the part that kind of helps, stops us from receiving or giving feedback. So kind of having that open discussion and putting it in the perspective of, like, I want to help this team to do better. I want to help your career to do better. Give me that feedback. And I'm always saying feedback is a gift. I'm kind of telling that to my team right now because we just went through the management development survey at Intel. Give me that feedback. I consider that to be a gift, and that helps me grow. And that helps me do a better job for you guys. Now, there are people who will never give you that feedback in kind of face-to-face because it's personality. So I think you have to have both survey, and that enables them to say what they think and corroborate that with the open discussion. And some people can open up in the team meeting and give you feedback. Some people will open up only in one-on-one, and after you prepare, kind of set the stage for them, give them some time to think 1 week in advance. Giving and receiving feedback requires effort on both sides. And another thing maybe on feedback, which I learned, is never challenge the feedback. So when I ask for it, somebody's giving it to me, it's such a human trait to kind of try to defend yourself. It's like, you just burn yourself to explain them why you did that. Don't. Try to keep yourself and say, thank you. I hear you, thank you. And then go and then think about it. Because if you challenge back, you will stop them next time to give you feedback, and you'll lose that gift. Is that, Mariana, is that helpful? What?
Yes, yes, I knew about that. Some people are not comfortable to talk with you directly. That's why I asked.
Right. So you kind of put all of them together to make sense of that feedback and see how it's actionable for you. Okay, thank you. This was a great discussion. If I see InProTED, okay. Thank you, InProTED. But I want to thank you all for participating. Again, this type of presentations are they are more productive for you if you get more involved. And I really appreciate that some of you got involved and asked questions, and hopefully it's been useful for everyone. I'm happy that InProTED is doing this series. I know there are some wonderful women coming. I have the honor to open the series, but there are some women who are great experiences, have wonderful experiences to share. And I'll give it back to Florine. And thank you very much.
Thank you everybody for coming. So as I said in the beginning, we have 2 more sessions in the following weeks. November 6th, Adina Tufinescu, Principal Project Manager at Microsoft, experienced person having to deal with teams as well. I'm pretty sure she has amazing stories to tell. And on November 20th, we have Alina Stanciu, also working in Microsoft as Principal Project Manager. She's also in the audience here. Thank you, Alina, for joining. She's gonna tell us her life story, and I'm pretty sure it's gonna be amazing. I thank you all for participating today. Keep an eye on InProTED website, and that's pretty much it. Thank you all for coming. Enjoy the rest of the weekend, both in Romania and in US, from wherever you are.
Yep. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.